Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, back with another sublimation tutorial. In today's video, we are going to be talking about sublimating slate. There are a lot of really great videos out there on how to sublimate slate, so I wanted to take it a step further and teach you how to sublimate slate using an AutoPress. Whenever I do anything with slate, people ask me if you can actually do this with an AutoPress. And generally my recommendation was no, but I decided to go ahead and figure it out. So I did quite a bit of testing to figure out what the best process was to be able to sublimate slate in an AutoPress. Slate can be a difficult material to sublimate, and so adding in the fact that you cannot adjust the pressure on an AutoPress makes it a little bit more difficult. Sublimating slate generally requires heavy pressure. So it's very difficult to get heavy pressure when you are using a press where you can't control the pressure. So today here I have my Cricut AutoPress. This tutorial should also work with the HTV Ront AutoPress as well as the Vever AutoPress, but I haven't tested it in either of those machines, so I can't fully confirm, but these tips and tricks should work in those machines. Let's talk a little bit about the problems you might have sublimating slate. The first problem is that you might have moisture issues. Slate tends to hold on to a lot of moisture, which means that you can get really blotchy images if you don't dry out the slate first. The heat press you have will determine how easy it is to dry out your slate. If you have the Vever AutoPress, which I have done a review on, I will go ahead and link it. As far as I can tell, there is no way to hover over your blank. It's either open or it's closed. There's no in between. If you have the HTV Ront AutoPress, you can just pull out the drawer, place your slate, and slide it in without actually closing it. I have my slate here, and I'm going to use my Cricut AutoPress. So for this, I'm just going to place it on the bottom of the machine here, and then I'm going to close it. Now, it doesn't stay automatically closed like this. You can sit there and you can hold it for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, however long you want to really get that moisture out. But it's kind of annoying to sit here and hold it. So I came up with this little hack. I'm just gonna go ahead and put my book right on there, and it actually works really well, and you can do something while your slate is being dried out. The second problem you might have sublimating slate is that the sublimation coating actually goes onto the sides of the slate here. So I'm gonna go to the overhead view, and you can see here that we have our flat surface, but then around sort of these edges here, there are parts that sort of dip down, and those also have sublimation coating on them, which means that unless you can actually heat all of this up in the same way that you're heating the top up, you'll end up with these kind of sort of ugly white edges, and I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. So I have one way of fixing that, and it is with the Sublimation green pad. Now, I talk about this in some of my sublimation videos. This is basically a pad that has metal fibers within it. And when the heat press heats up, it heats up the metal fibers in this pad and allows it to basically conform to the edges of your project. This is not a cheap purchase, but if you want to do more advanced sublimation projects like these slates, this is definitely something you're probably going to want to add to cart at some point. A third problem you're going to see with sublimating slate is faded images. So basically your image is just not vibrant enough. And that has to do with the pressure. So again, with an AutoPress, you can't actually adjust the pressure, which makes things a little bit more difficult. So we're basically going to have to mess with our other variables to be able to sublimate on slate so that you get a really nice, vibrant image. Let's talk about what you're going to need to sublimate slate in an AutoPress. Of course, you're going to need the slate itself. There are so many shapes and so many different options. I'm just going with a simple rectangular slate for this project here. You're also going to need some heat-resistant tape. You're going to need some alcohol and a wipe or something to be able to clean the surface of your blank before you press it. You're going to need some butcher paper. You're going to need that green pad that I talked about. And then you're going to need something like this wool pressing mat. I tried this with a Nomex pad as well, but it's just not quite as sturdy as a wool pressing pad, so I highly recommend the wool over anything else. And then of course you're also going to need your image. A lot of times people do photos on slate. It makes total sense, but I didn't really want to break out all of my photos for this, so I actually have a bundle of files for you. These sublimation files will work on all sorts of projects beyond slate, so if you'd like to grab those, you can get them for free in my craft library. You can access my craft library at heyletsmakestuff.com/library. There you can request the password if you don't already have it, and then from there you can log in and you can get to my craft library. This set of 4 files is under S29 in my craft library, so that's Sublimation 29. There are 2 ways to find it. The first is to click on the Sublimation/DTF button and you'll be taken down to the Sublimation section where you can find the file. The second is to use the find function on your computer. That's Control F if you're on a PC, Command F if you're on a Mac. Just search for S29 and you'll be taken right to the file. When you find S29, there will be 3 links. The first link is that download link, so just click it and it will download a zip with the files for you onto your computer. The second link is for the blog post for this video, and the third link is this video. So I've printed out one of those designs, and we're going to go ahead and sublimate it on this slate today. All right, I have turned on my AutoPress and it is heating up. I apologize if it's doing a little humming in the background, but let's talk about how we are actually going to sublimate using this AutoPress. To start, we are going to clean our blank. So I've got alcohol here. I'm just going to put a little bit on my my rag here, and I'm just going to clean it. This gets rid of any fingerprints or anything else that can get in the way of our transfer. Once the alcohol has dried, we can tape this to our transfer. So I'm just going to flip it over. The images that I have given you are all square, but this is a rectangular blank. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it down here at the bottom so I get the sun and the woman. Then I'm going to just use a few pieces of heat-resistant tape to secure it to my paper. Honestly, it doesn't secure super well. The slate is heavy, so it can move around. This is just to sort of keep it together while you get it to your press. Now let's talk about the sort of sublimation sandwich that you're going to use when pressing. If you're using a traditional heat press, you don't need this bottom step. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this pad to the bottom of my heat press. Just like that. I have found that this sort of really solid pad is necessary to be able to create that heavy pressure that we're going for. And then I have my design and I'm going to flip it over so that the slate is on the bottom facing up and my image is on top facing down. You want to make sure that no matter what kind of press you're using, that this is in the center of your press. You don't want to put it on the edge because then you risk getting like heavier pressure on one side versus the other, and then your image is not going to look good. Then we're going to add another piece of butcher paper. Then we're going to add the green pad. So like I said, the green pad is going to get very, very hot, and it's basically going to conform to the edges of the slate, making sure that the parts of our slate that are sort of not at that top level are also getting sublimated. Then I'm going to throw another butcher paper on top, and we're ready to press. For this particular blank, we are going to be pressing it at 400 for 9 minutes. That is a very long pressing time. But basically, we need to counteract how cold the slate is, and we need to warm that whole slate up so that it sublimates properly. I'll be talking a little bit more about time and temperature here in just a minute, but I will go ahead in the description of this video. I will add the time and temperature I used on all 3 blanks so that you can make sure that you're getting the right time and temperature set the first time. All right, my AutoPress is to temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and close it, and we're going to press this blank. While this is pressing, let's head to the overhead shot so I can show you the difference in some of the variables that I used. Let's start with the one in the top left here. So you can see that it is much more faded than any of my other options. I actually wrote what I did on the back, so I'm going to flip it over. It's very messy, but this was a great way for me to take notes. I used my AutoPress. I did use that green pad. My heat press was set to 400, and I used 240 seconds. Now these are the settings I would use for a traditional heat press, but clearly in the AutoPress, I definitely did not get the result I was looking for. For the next test, I used that wool mat. So I used my AutoPress, the green pad, the wool mat, and then again I did it at 400 for 240 seconds. It was definitely better than my first try. However, I knew I could get an even more vibrant print. I also didn't love how it wasn't getting the edges very well. And I knew I couldn't add more pressure, so I had to play with the other variables of time and temperature to make sure that I could get a better result. So this was my third try, and actually here I'm getting very happy with the result. So if I flip it over, this was 360 seconds at 400 degrees using both the green pad and the wool mat. And I was getting a much better result here on the edges than I was with any of my previous attempts. Honestly, I would be pretty happy with this, but I thought I could get it even more vibrant. My fourth option doesn't look super different, but it is actually more vibrant. I can tell in person that this is the most vibrant of the 4. So this was with the green pad, with the wool mat, 400 for 480 seconds. And it did just such a lovely job. It's a really bright, vibrant image. And these are the recommendations for this particular blank that I would recommend. For both of these larger blanks, I upped that time to a full 9 minutes. I knew that this was more slate that it had to heat up, so I gave it an even longer press time, and it worked really well. All right, this is gonna pop up. There it goes. It always scares me. Even when I'm like literally staring at it, my whole body still goes, like I get a little scared when it opens. So this is going to be very, very hot. And one of the things I forgot to tell you about this at the beginning of the video is that you're going to want heat-resistant gloves. One mistake I have seen people make is forgetting that this green pad is basically just as hot as the heat press. So this heat press is set at 400 degrees. This green pad is really hot. Even just doing that, I could feel it through my gloves. I'm just going to lift up my slate by the paper here. And let's pull this over here and go this way. And from here, we can pull off our paper to see our final product. So as you can see here, it's sublimated absolutely perfectly. We have that sublimation ink going down onto the side, so we don't have a lot of unsightly white areas. And overall, this turned out really great. And that is sublimating slate in an AutoPress. It is not that different from sublimating slate in a traditional heat press, but you do have to play with those variables a little bit more because you can't play with the pressure. Adding that wool pad was a game changer. It went from being very faded to being much better. And then adding that green pad, of course, really does improve the quality of the image that you're sublimating. If you're still getting faded images, you can try increasing the time. As you saw in my little test, going from 240 seconds to a full 480 seconds really improved the quality of my transfer. I hope you found this video on sublimating slate with an AutoPress helpful. If you have any questions or you need me to help troubleshoot, go ahead and leave a comment. Follow my channel for more sublimation, Cricut, and laser content. I'll see you next time.